So I'm going to warn you ahead of time that this video almost has no points. um, the main reason why I'm here is sort of I am I am mourning the death, for me at least, um, of that long form game. And by long form game, I'm talking about that nostalgic, meandering D&D campaign that lasts multiple years, and people roll in and out, and characters roll in and out and die and retire, and it just spans this huge sort of stretch, and you go from one, and you end up maybe in the low teens by the end, character wise, but it's like 3 years in, and you've had a dozen players total rolling in and out at various times, and all their characters, and this guy retired, and these two got married, and this one died, and so on, right? That whole, naughty, and I've had epic games that came to a head and finished in some epic fight, and I do, or some epic confrontation. And I think that's the norm now. I think that's what people we're generally shooting for, right? We're generally shooting for, that's how the modules are written now. You get a book of, there's 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 adventures in there. It's going to take you from 1 to 20, and you're going to fight the evil Lich Lord at the end, and bam, done. And we move on to the next one, and it'll be done in about a year or thereabouts. I don't think that's bad, by the way. And that's how most of, I think, my games are nowadays in 2024. But I do miss that other type of game, the almost the meandering game, right? The game that sort of spans those. Maybe you have some epics in there, epic villains, or maybe you have some epic things in there, but you roll from one to the next. Like, that's not the end. No. So the halfling prince defeated his half brother, and you know and saved the alliance. Well, okay, and then we just move on to the next thing, right? Like nothing happened. We just keep rolling. Um, and I think I miss that, but I'm not sure if I miss it or if I'm just nostalgic for it, right? Because I'm of that age where I can fall prone to maudlin nostalgia very, very easily, especially when it comes to gaming stuff, because I have a lot of nostalgic memories about a lot of games. Um, and there's a few factors in why I don't think that I see those games much anymore with my group. One is, very simply, we're older. People are doing shit. When we were kids and we were playing 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, no, I don't know, 5 times is a bit much, but right in the summer when you had nothing else to do, um, and you had, there was this golden time where um, I was in middle school and I was playing with a bunch of kids in high school, and they had cars and I didn't have a job. um, you know, and that, and we could play a lot. There's a lot of gaming in those summer weeks, and it was awesome, by the way. Or those long weekends where you just, yep, we're going to play Friday night, we're going to play Saturday night, and we're going to stay over Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then everybody roll home sometime Sunday at 1 or something, 1 in the afternoon, something like that. Like those, but those were, dozen hour sessions, or more than a dozen hours in some of those cases. And we just don't do that. We play once a week. It's 4 hours done, and so that's a different sort of level of commitment I think we have to these games, and maybe there's more of an impetus to see them through to an end, and thus that end has to come shorter, in a shorter time frame, because you just don't have as many hours to do that sort of rolling, meandering game. Another factor, I think, is simply an opportunity cost factor. As as you get older, the number of games you have left in you it becomes so. I don't know how old any of you are. You probably, I'm sure many of you are about as old as I am. I'm sure some of you, one or two of you are younger. I'm going to give you a tip. One of the things that sucks about getting older is so much of your life then becomes finite and countable. It's all finite from the beginning. Let's understand something. You only have so many heartbeats, when you're born, but everything becomes finite and countable as you age, and in some cases that really sucks. And I think, strangely enough, gaming wise, that's one of the things that becomes finite and countable. Um, you know, None of us are young at the table. I mean, the kids are young. We have kids that also play, but I mean, none of the adults at the table are young people. We're aging, um, and so if you look at a campaign that lasts a year, and you're playing with guys that are 55 years old, and you go, oh, we only have, let's say, let's be optimistic, 30 of these left, and then if one of them lasts 3 years, that's actually a huge percentage of that. That's a tenth that you've just eaten up, and so there's an opportunity cost. If we go, oh, we want to play this campaign or supers, or we want to play, you know, whatever, we want to play a birthright clone or E6 variant of D&D, then you're like, wow, we don't, that's a lot. I just described 5 years of games right there. Um, so I think there's an opportunity cost there, which makes it harder to commit to get people jazzed about, hey, we're going to play for 5 years. We're just going to play a single game. It's going to be this monster game. You're going to love it, right? And here we go. The other thing is, the games have changed. Now, mind you, I have the rules cyclopedia up, so it's saying the games have changed, but I have for flipping. One of the best RPG books ever written, by the way, is this book. It is a beautiful, beautiful book. Even if you don't like D&D, it's still there's just so much. It's such a cool book. Um, I mean, if you don't like D&D, you're not buying this book, and that's fine. But I'm just saying that this book, I do love this book, and I don't play it. I don't play basic D&D at this juncture in my gaming life. But boy, I love this book. Um, so another thing, but the games have changed, right? The games, I think, are designed to push a shorter campaign. Not in any weird conspiracy, AAA gaming sucks like there's no like magical theory to it or anything. It's just, I think that the games, third edition D&D, fifth edition D&D, Pathfinders, certainly the games that I have written since the year 2000, all rely very heavily on character builds as one of their main features. You build a character, you pick a bunch of powers. As you level up, you get more powers, and as you get more powers, you can do cooler things. And as you do cooler things, you can face bigger challenges and so on. But that has the way of creeping quickly and getting to a critical mass where you have to either push the big bad guy out there and let's do this, or it starts to break down. I feel, at least. And I think a lot of people feel the same. I think there's a lot of videos out there where people go, yeah, yeah, D&D sort of breaks down, around level 12, right? And again, some of that has to do with quadratic wizardry, and some of that has to do, but there are games without quad. So I said I for our last fantasy game wrote a game that is based off of a set of rules which I use since well before 2000. Um, I threw 16 quote unquote classes, roughly based on Magic Realm characters, because just cause. And they had little talent trees, and you did right, but they were all fairly well balanced in the sense that you didn't have the quadratic wizard problem that you say do in a D&D. And you still ran into it because everybody now, it was just that everybody was started to break down around level 12, you know what I mean, kind of thing at the end. Um, and there was a point, and I sort of knew we were getting there once we got to those tier 4 powers and the tier 4 spells and so on. I'm like, well, it's about time to fight the baddie, right? We can't do this forever. Um, and I just think that, and it was about a year, and I think that most I think D&D by design, effectively fifth edition, is about a year, and then you go, let's do another thing because that thing is mostly it's played out. Um, and so I think there's something inherent in the games, and I think it's the character builds. I think that if your character build system, no, I'm sure you could. I mean, you could. I mean, so it's weird because you're talking about a timeline, right? So literally, we could extend this however we want to. I could easily have written my game such that you don't get a power every time, or you have to stretch it out so it lasts 5 years. But I do think that in a character build game, that becomes less satisfying. You don't want you're building your character. You don't want to see the end result of your delicious build system come together in 5 years. You want to see, we're not planning a Marxist planned economy. we're we're trying, I think there's some desire to get that, in a number of sessions that make sense. Like you want to be handing out little dollops of joy to the players, and if the build system is your joy, then that means you're adding a power or a talent or a perk, or a stat increase, and those keep coming at some reasonable pace. And if that reasonable pace seems to end up being close to about a year before it reaches a critical mass where you're like, I think we're done. And I think that's sort of how D&D 5th tends to play out. And I think that's how my game played out. And I think I think that is sort of how the modules are almost written, that are published for 5th. So I think what that tells me is, and I could be full of it, don't get me wrong. Someone can come and say, no, we have a 5, I'm sure someone does. We had a 5-year long 5e game. We're all level 17 and it's great. And that's great. More power to this is absolutely personal, like, personal garbage in my head. Not I'm not talking about anybody else's table. I mean, if you have anecdotes, tell me because I am interested. By the way, so what this does tell me though is if I do want to capture that game, then maybe the OSR guys have it right. Right? Maybe we back off all those powers and feats and that sort of layering on of dollops of joy in the build, and maybe you go back to something a little closer to either rule cyclopedia like a basic D&D or a first edition. Now, I don't know that I would play for like, so I do think you have a wizard problem in most of these games where only the wizards get awesome, and breakdown. So maybe play a game like Rollmaster, a Harn Master. Um, some of those games. I mean, you probably, to be honest with you, could even do like a GURPS or a fantasy hero. Like those could be very easily incremental games where you weren't really layering on powers. You were getting 3% better at the thing you did, or 5% better at the thing you did. And that was just pretty slowly edging up. And, after 5 years, you were going to have a 90 versus a 20 in something, but that's after, that's after 5 years or whatever. I mean, 5 years sounds like a long time, by the way, but you know what I mean. But you know what I mean. After, you know, that if the progression is literally step by step by step, it's probably not as joyful. It's probably not as satisfying. But that's not where you're layering in that joy, right? The the I think in those games that those bits came into things like treasure acquisition. Um, maybe was getting access to new spells, or those just special things that were sort of hard to that aren't necessarily material gains for the character or power gains, but more just, oh yeah, you know I built my keep, or I joined the thieves guild, or you get the perks, right? That you get the world perks. So anyway, why did I make the? So I told you this video had no point. If you watch this far, which no one did, and that's cool. I get it. Um, how long are your tabletop games? How long do they last? What system are you playing? Do you find that the system starts to break down at a certain point? Do you lose interest? Like, what is your disposition at your table for long form play? Currently the disposition that we have is games run about a year. Now some of that is forced. Some of that is, at some point, I go, hey, I want to try a new game or whatever, right? Or we, but again, even the games that didn't, run their course a little bit, and in a lot of cases, mechanics ran their course. So what's it like at your table? Uh, is Are we looking at the slow death of the long form game only to be kept alive by a few graybeards playing, deep dark secret versions of OD&D, original, chainmail rules? Like what are you playing? What's it going? How long does it last? Do you even want to do a long form game? Help me out. Talk to me. I will see you all later. Good evening.